Hey guys, and welcome back to another Spore creation video. And for today's video, we're going to be making a Pokemon fusion using Breloom and Houndoom. This was requested by Curious Kitten for the 200k subscriber requests. Curious, congratulations, and thank you very much for a very interesting fusion idea. So, to hit things off with first, when it came to the two ideas, so Houndoom's a very typical, you know, kind of like a satanic dog kind of thing, whereas Breloom was very unique. He had some very overpowering features, well, probably overpowering is the wrong word, some very strong features which I figured in a fusion would probably really bring out Breloom's identity, and that was proven time and time again during the live stream of which I'd made this. A lot of people joined the stream and noticed immediately, okay then, Breloom is involved in it. So I was very happy about that. With that in mind, with the whole, you know, features being quite strong, I decided to start with Houndoom's body. That way it's a little bit more recognisable, to give a little bit more homage to Houndoom's part of the fusion. And the first thing I did, so as some of you may know, when it comes to my fusions and hybrids, I really like to try and combine things properly, creatively. I don't like the idea of, you know, having two subjects, just smash them together and calling it a day. I'd rather like try and intertwine features. And a major example of that's here is I tried to use Breloom's feet. I'm not sure if they're claws or hooves or whatever they are, but they're very vividly coloured feet, two claw things. We'll call them hooves actually. I used Breloom's very vibrantly coloured hooves and added a couple of Houndoom's claws into it. That way they're kind of a mishmash of both. Might not technically make sense to have a claw inside a hoof, whatever the material is, but hey, for the fusion idea it works in my opinion. And the next thing was to add a couple of Houndoom's braces, if you will. Now, as any of you know, anyone who's tried to do any outfitting in Spore, it is very, very hard to get anything to wrap around a piece properly, such as having a bracelet or a necklace or a belt, whatever. It is very challenging to actually have that piece kind of circle around the limb entirely. So what I had to do here was to use some drone parts frames, or more like these square parts, make them very, very thin and very long, and use that as a frame. That way, with that and with the square nudge handle that pulls things further and closer to the skin, or to the part that it's stacked on, using a combination of all of that, I was able to kind of shimmy the parts around and just kind of merge them inside, make them wrap around the creature. It's a very tricky kind of technique, but it's an extraordinarily effective one. And of course it does take a little bit of time, but the time's worth it. When it came to the tails, what I've noticed that both Breloom and Houndoom have long tails, but whereas Houndoom has a very long, thin, imp-like tail, very curved one, Breloom's tail is more, a bit more thick and a little bit stockier with the, what do you call them, with the balls on the end, I guess. So what I tried to do here was have a bit of a, again, a bit of a hybrid between the two. It may have unintentionally looked a bit too far on one side or the other, but the intention here was to have a slightly thicker variant of Houndoom's tail, with the balls on the end, just like Breloom has. I did experiment around and tried to have the little, what would you call it, like the little arrowhead on the top of the tail that Houndoom has. I did try to include that, but in the end it just felt really awkward and out of place. At least, you know, having an overlap to the balls as well, it just felt very odd, so I ended up scrapping that idea. Now, originally, when I'd made the base of the creature, I had included the neck as part of the spine, but midway through, I decided to scrap that idea entirely. And the reason why is because I wanted to have the limb and the head, or sorry, the neck and the head to be made out of limbs instead. And the reason why for that is because I've noticed in Breloom's coloration, the midsection of the body is one colour, but the head, the neck, and if I remember correctly, parts of the limbs and the tail are different colours as well. And that is something I can somewhat mimic in Spore. What I can do is have certain patterns or textures or whatever, coats, and have them only affect the limbs. And if I have the neck be made out of limbs, as awkward as it may animate, it actually gets that texture that I'm after, and it looks more consistent with the tail and the legs. You know, it tries again to emphasise a bit more of the variety, the blocky variety if you will, in Breloom's colour scheme. It also meant for a, you know, the potential of a actual kind of dog-like shaped head. Even though it's a custom head, and I know not everyone's a big fan of those, I feel like it's just a lot more accurate, if you will. It gives the illusion better in my opinion. Next up, I decided to start adding some more of Breloom's features, because right now it's looking a bit too much like Houndoom. So to try and add some more of Breloom's features, I of course went through or added the, the thing around the neck. I'm not sure if they're like petals or if it's like some kind of bit of outfitting. I'm not sure what exactly to call those, but I've added a bit of that around Houndoom's neck, or the fusion's neck I should say. And of course I had to include the cap as well, the little mushroom cap thing. I don't know the generations nowadays, so I might be using all sorts of wrong terms, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to explain. Using the drone parts, I was really happy about this. So with Breloom's cap, it really is like a mushroom. I think it's mushroom. The outer part of it was the one colour, but the inside part was like a bit of a pattern inside, and as it turns out, I was able to mimic this pattern perfectly using the drone parts. With these square nudge handles, it really does offer a nice variety and potential of the way that you can manipulate these parts, especially if they have different levels, different dimensions. You can embed them into the base part and combine them and have some really interesting results. In this case, I was able to add a bit of a pattern inside the cap, and again to really emphasise the changes in colours and to really mimic Breloom's cap. Now of course to add a bit more of Houndoom back into this, I did include the horns. Now the horns are of course in the wrong direction entirely, but I didn't really want to have the horns poking out of the cap. I think that just would have looked very silly. So instead I had to try to, have the whole curved horns idea going on, but instead kind of curved just about barely underneath the cap. So, as if it's meant to be there. As if it's just like a Pokemon, all the different styles and features are all intended and they just overlap perfectly. That's the kind of thing I aimed for here as well. By the stage in the creation, I'd realised, so with the drone parts, what you can do is all the drone parts kind of inherit the colour scheme of the base, pattern, coat or textures that you choose for the creation. And I'd realised by this point that the claws I'd use for the feet were going to just be a very generic white. So instead, I've gone back, with a bit of trial and error of course, trying to find that right part. I went back and tried to use some drone parts to make the claws have the same colour, the same type and theme as the bangles and the cap and the thing around the neck. That way, in the actual final thing, the claws would be the same colour as the rest. Although as we progressed on the creation, I realised I scrapped that idea entirely, and apparently I went back to the claws in the end anyway, so never mind. And now to add in a bit more of Houndoom, of course I had to add in all the spikes that he has around his back, kind of like ribs but on his back. Add in a bunch of those, add in the choker if you will, using just a bunch of keratin horns in vanilla variety, and using one of the tribal editor skulls. A little bit cheap, but it gets the effect I want. And it's a far more consistent colour and texture with the keratin horn, so it actually kind of works out quite nicely. It really does look nice and consistent. When it came to the eyes, as much as I would have liked for it to be like a rather angry looking creature, I decided to stick with Breloom's eyes. It was a very typical anime-ish kind of thing, just pure black eyes with a bit of coloration in them, just set a little bit. And of course the little white people. Now I'm kind of torn on the result there, because on the one hand, the creature as it stands looked very nature-ish, it looked very, very peaceful, which considering it's got bones and bangles and it's part Houndoom, the whole natural side of it did seem a little bit off, but at the same time I didn't want the creature to be too angry, I think. While it did look too friendly, I think having an angry looking creature with all of these, more natural parts probably would have looked very jarring. So while I am a little bit torn between the expression of the eyes, I think what I used in the end kind of works. Whereas for the mouth was intentionally neutral. I didn't want to look as angry as Houndoom or as, I was about to say as happy as Breloom, but now that I remember it, he actually isn't very happy. He just looked very, very curious, very natural if anything. When it came to the colour scheme, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. As a lot of you may know, when it comes to my fusions, like I said earlier, I try to have things kind of have a bit of a balance, take a bit here and there of both creatures or both concepts involved, and that was proved to be very, very troubling, very difficult with this. Because one, the drone parts weren't really quite texturing as vividly as I'd wanted to, as vibrantly, they were a little bit more washed out. So it meant I was lacking the consistency between textures of those parts and the actual body. And two, a lot of the various textures I was using to try and colouring the neck, the tail, the legs, like I described earlier, they were having very mixed results. And additionally, on the one hand, if I had the textures more similar to that of Breloom, it would have looked far too overpowering on Breloom's side. but when I tried having on Houndoom side, the aforementioned watered down colours in the drone parts were just clashing horribly. So it took a lot of trial and error. In the end, I found some kind of combination I was fairly happy with. It wasn't perfect, but as always guys, sport does have its limitations and we can't get everything quite perfect, especially when it comes to Pokemon. I definitely could arguably have used a variety of nail down parts, or coloured nail downs, to try and make up for all of the, you know, missing bits of colours here and there, or try to like make up coats. But I avoided that because 1, it would have been really heavy and really bulked out the creature, and 2, they're often very, very blocky. I liked the slender form, like how smooth everything was. I liked how it was just a very nice chill creation, and I didn't want to ruin that by just smacking on lots of blocky nail downs. So I experimented with textures as much as I could, and in the end I made do. I am happy with the creation, I definitely am. But, like I said at the beginning, it was a very interesting fusion. I do have mixed feelings about it, but I think that's just probably me being too harsh on myself. As a lot of you know, I do like my more angrier, more ferocious kind of creations, so to have something a lot more on the chill side, it can be quite jarring for me. But taking a step back and looking at it, I have to say I'm quite happy, I am quite satisfied, and Curious Kitten, I really hope that you are as well. As always guys, thank you very much for watching, hope you learned a thing or two, and I'll see you all in the next episode.